Tell me, how's your self-worth? Hi, I'm Katie Gates, and today I want to speak about self-worth and why it is so important to know who you are. For one, if you know who you are, then you know your self-worth. If you know who you are, you know your value. So that's why it's so important to have self-worth. I always say love yourself enough to say no, but we know that it's not that easy. But if you know who you are, like I said before, you know your self-worth. So I want to discuss self-worth, or AKA self-esteem, with you today. Self-worth is defined as one's value or thoughts of oneself as a human being. So in other words, self-worth explains how we as people see ourselves in the world today, tomorrow, and forever. So self-worth is how we as people see ourselves in the world today, tomorrow, and forever. And to me, that's fascinating. That is so fascinating to me. Personally, I often equate self-worth with willpower simply because the higher your will, the greater your self-worth. It typically works that way. The higher your will, the greater your self-worth. Why? Well, because willpower is our response to and the ability to control our urges, our emotions, and our actions. So if you value who you are, typically, not always, but typically, you're not going to contradict those values with negative actions, feelings, or urges, nor will you allow others to dictate who you are. See, if you know who you are, then you're not going to allow other people to tell you who you are or who you are not, because you know your value, you know your self-worth. That's why it's so important that we as people understand who we are, especially in the times that we're living in today. Like I said, when we know our self-worth, we know our value. And knowing our value encourages us to embrace our confidence. Do you know it's so important to have great confidence? True confidence that shines not only on the outside, but works in the inside as well. It is so important. When we know our worth, our overall character tells a story. We become walking stories, literally, when we know our worth. So it clearly defines our confidence, our character. It shines on the outside when we know who we are, when we know our value. And while we may not be confident in all things, because no one is, we may not be confident in all things or in every area of our lives, because none of us are. But we are confident in the areas of loving ourselves, accepting who we are, embracing compassion, and steering clear of arrogance and self-absorbency. When you know who you are, you know your self-worth and your value. So things like arrogance and self-absorbency is not needed because you know who you are. Isn't that awesome? You know who you are. So we're also able, when I say we, I'm talking globally, people that are in touch with their self-worth and their value. We're also able to express a bona fide compassion. That means a genuine compassion and empathy, kindness, and respect for others. That's important too. And in the world that we're living in today, there's so much pain that we're seeing with our physical eyes. There's so much pain that we're feeling as human beings. So genuine compassion, respect, and kindness is necessary. It's very necessary. So self-worth takes into account three things: feelings about self, thoughts about self, and behaviors toward self. Because that's important. How we behave toward ourselves plays a huge part and our value and knowing our self-worth. So it's important that we understand that it all works together. It's a whole, it's a puzzle. It all works together. Something that I do want us to keep in mind, because we often, or society often, confuses self-worth with things that have nothing to do with value or self-worth. So keep in mind that our self-worth, your self-worth, is not defined by your outer appearance, or your beauty. It's not defined by your bank account or your wealth status, your achievements or talents, your educational level, your friends, your circle, or who you know. It's not defined by your relationship status. That is so important. Ladies, I have something very important coming up regarding relationship status, so stay tuned. You need to hear it. It's not defined, our worth or our value is not defined by our social media likes or followers, by our job titles, our daily tasks or schedules. I'm a writer and author, and I often say busy is not a status symbol. Although the world would make you believe that it is, being busy is not a status symbol. Your value or your self-worth is not defined by busyness. And it is definitely not defined by the thoughts of others when it comes to yourself. Don't allow others to paint their picture of you. It's important that you pick up that paintbrush. You take your own canvas and you paint your own picture. Don't equate someone's thoughts or approval of you with your self-worth or your value. So that's important. Self-worth and our value has nothing to do with beauty, bank account, educational levels, achievements, talents, friends, our circle, relationship status, social media likes or followers, daily tasks or schedules, our job titles, and the thoughts of others. That's why it's important to know your worth, because then we're not falling into any of those characters that I just outlined. And it's not wrong if you do, because I believe we all have at some point in our lives. It's important to recognize if that happens, because then you can pull yourself out and you're not getting trapped in either one of these categories. So that's why it's so important. So when it comes to self-worth, it does take work. Just like willpower, I spoke on that last week. Willpower takes work. So does self-worth or self-esteem. It all takes work. For some of us, it just doesn't fall in our laps naturally. Although the Father, God, because I'm a strong believer in God, He places it within us. Life, the things that we go through, tries to pull it from us. It tries to remove it from us. So to truly embrace self-worth, it requires us to accept who we are. So we have to accept ourselves. And this is vital. This and is very vital. It requires us to forgive ourselves of past negative actions. Once we do those two things, we can embrace self-worth. And then it gets even better. Once we embrace self-worth and we accept our shortcomings and understand that none of us are perfect, once we embrace self-worth and accept those shortcomings, we begin to truly define our own value. That's good. We begin to truly define our own unique value. And when we do this, we open up our minds to an abundance of self-worth. That is so phenomenal to me. An abundance of self-worth. And who does not want that? We all do. We all want that. So to truly embrace self-worth, accept who you are, and forgive yourself of past mistakes. When you do that, you will open the door to improving your self-worth. So once we've accepted the entire sphere, like I said, it's a puzzle or it's a circle, and it works as a whole all together. Value and self-worth, or self-esteem and willpower. Once we accept the entire sphere, we can venture into productive ways to increase our self-worth. And there are ways. I'm going to outline some of those ways in just a moment. There are ways to naturally increase our self-worth, and they're not difficult at all. It only takes 5 minutes a day to increase or to even find your self-worth. Because some of us have to dig a little deeper and find it. So I'm going to outline a few ways that you can start doing right now while you're watching this video, like right now, to increase your self-worth. Step 1, understand who you are and your wants. Step 1 is understanding who you are and what you want. That's easy enough, right? If we know who we are as people and what we want, we're not going to allow others to paint that picture for us. That's what I just said previously. Paint your own picture. Get your own canvas and start painting. If we don't know who we are or what we want from this life, we're subject to letting other people define our being and our purpose for this life. That's a miserable way to live, because then we're not living authentically. We're living in the shadows of someone else. And often those shadows are very dark. They're not good shadows. And not only that, we're left miserable, unhappy, and we're not fulfilled in life because we're living in the shadows of others. That's why it's so important that we understand who we are and what we want from this life. Step 2, talk to yourself positively. We have to talk to ourselves. There's nothing wrong with it. There's this saying that if you talk to yourself, just don't answer yourself, because then when you do that, it's a problem. However, I don't agree with that. We have to talk to ourselves positively, because a lot of the times the world is not going to do it for us. Therefore, that requires us to talk to ourselves in a positive manner. So start talking to yourselves in a positive light. Whom you believe that you are starts with whom you tell yourself that you are. So whom we believe we are starts with whom we tell ourselves who we are. Not with what other people have said, but what we say about ourselves. So nurturing ourselves through the power of voice requires us to train the inner voice, that inner voice, to know who we are. And the only way to do this is by feeding our inner selves positive information too, positive information and positive affirmations instead of negative critiques. Because we often critique ourselves very hard. We're our own worst critics. We don't need anyone to do it for us. So for example, instead of expressing how bad you are at something, start seeing opportunities for improvement. So if you're bad at math, and by the way, I don't think anybody is bad at anything. I think the mind is so powerful and God gives us so many opportunities to learn so many things. But if you call yourself bad at math, find opportunities to make yourself better. And we know where most people start is on the internet, on YouTube University. If you're bad at algebra, chemistry, go learn it. YouTube University. So see opportunities instead of negative critiques. Step 3, embrace self-love. Don't think that embracing self-love is self-absorbency or being full of self. That's not what it is at all. When done responsibly, embracing self-love can help you grow, can help you expand your mind, and will, without a doubt, help you understand who you are, what you want, and how valuable you are. So, to embrace self-love, start by saying things like, I love myself. I am worthy. Success belongs to me. My past does not define me. I am deserving of all great things in this life. Those are examples of embracing self-love. Know that you're worthy of greatness and start walking in that greatness. That's self-love. That's embracing. That's like grabbing at it and hugging self-love. There's nothing wrong with it. Embrace who you are. Embrace self-love. Learn to love yourself. Because if you cannot love yourself, and I say this often, you'll hear me say this often. If we cannot love ourselves, we can't love anyone else. There's no capacity to truly love anyone else if we don't love ourselves. You must love yourself first to be able to genuinely or wholeheartedly love anyone else. Step 4, your tribe and or your relationship matters. Who we surround ourselves with matters. It matters. So surround yourself. This is very, very vital. Surround yourself with those willing to push you and your purpose in a positive direction. Oh, that is so, so, so important. Surround yourself with those willing to push you and your purpose in a positive direction. The people we surround ourselves with, or our circle, play a significant role in our journey's progress. Because the goal in life is to move forward, not backward. When we surround ourselves with people that's willing to push us and our purpose in a positive direction, that helps us move forward, not backward. You don't want to take 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. That's stagnation. That's like wavering. We don't want to do that. So surrounding yourself with great people, or true greatness as I call it, is key. It's very, very important. So therefore, if the company you keep does not have your best interest at heart, and I'm not trying to be harsh, but if the company you keep does not have your best interest at heart, pray about it, pray for them, and tell it goodbye. Pray about it, pray for them, and tell them goodbye. It's important. I know it's scary, but this is where finding courage comes in at. This is where knowing that God is not going to lead you in a negative direction. So pray about it, pray for them, and tell them goodbye. This is also where self-worth comes into play. This is a great example, because if you know your self-worth, or if we know our self-worth, we know which behaviors to tolerate and which behaviors not to accept. So if you have a circle of friends or relationships where the behavior toward yourself is not great behavior, allow your self-worth and knowing your value and knowing who you are and what you want in life to come into play, and tell it goodbye. You will thank yourself later. I promise. So, ladies, women, beautiful, beautiful souls. Like I said earlier, this is the side note for women, including myself. It is very, very important as women. We mustn't determine our value based upon our relationship status. Because women, we're naturally nurturers. We get trapped and determining our value based upon our relationship status. So if you know who you are before you enter a relationship, you will know who you are during the relationship and after the relationship if it happens to end. So let me say that again. If you know who you are before you enter a relationship, you will know who you are during the relationship and after the relationship if it happens to end. Knowing your self-worth is vital, ladies. Knowing our self-worth when we're in relationships, whether those relationships are romantic relationships or platonic relationships, allows us to understand that we are deserving of love, respect, and time. You are deserving of love, respect, and time. When you know your self-worth, you know that. And you don't accept anything but that when you know your self-worth. When we love ourselves, we can love others, and then we can recognize genuine love. So if that relationship that you're in, if you love yourself and love others, you can recognize if the relationship that you're in is worth your time. Is it a lovable relationship? Does he or she value you? Does he or she, men too, this is for men too. So when I refer to he, I'm talking to ladies. When I refer to she, I'm talking to men. Although I said side note for women, but men can use this too. The person you're with, do they value you? Do they give you their time? Do they respect you? Do they include you? Those are all important things when we're in relationships. So keep this in mind. Keep this in mind. You'll hear me say this a lot too. If you stick with me and subscribe, please. A person can't love you if they don't love themselves. A person can't love you if they don't love themselves. And their love of self will show through their actions toward themselves and toward you. Keep that in mind. A person can't love you if they don't love themselves. And you'll know if they love themselves based upon their actions toward self and their actions toward you. That's how you know. So that's why it's important, ladies, to know your tribe, to know your relationships. That's the side note. So one thing about self-worth, when we do embrace it, when we do know that we deserve it, when we are walking in self-worth and walking in our value, self-worth will tell us that we deserve better. It will tell us that God didn't create us for this. Self-worth tells you that God did not create you for negative interaction. Not all the time. Self-worth will also tell you that you're worthy of greater. You're worthy of greatness. When you're walking in self-worth, you're walking in your value, and you'll know that you're worthy of greater. That's why it's so important that we know our self-worth. That's why it's so important that we understand our value, that we know who we are, what we want from this life. So, and because I love to put action behind videos or anything that you watch, I feel like it's important to put action behind it. So I don't want you to just watch this video and then to leave it and not put movement behind it. So ask yourself, who am I? I would love for you to do an activity. That activity is getting a sheet of paper, putting the title at the top, who am I? Write 10 words describing yourself. 10 words that say who you are to yourself. When you're done writing out those 10 words, look at those words, and if any of them are negative, replace them with positive words that define who you are. You will thank yourself later. That's the first step. That's the first activity. Now, on the back of that same sheet of paper, write 5 positive affirmations that you feel your inner self desires to hear. Oh, that's so good. That's so good because I do this activity myself and it's golden. So if you are someone who worries about the opinion of others, a positive affirmation may sound something like this. Today, I choose to put my positive thoughts above the negative thoughts of others. It's that simple. That's a positive affirmation regarding yourself. It's 5 minutes. It's all it takes. 5 minutes. And so continue doing these exercises daily. Take them with you to work, school, or wherever you feel comfortable. And I can guarantee you, if you do these on a daily basis, your self-worth will increase. You're going to be more confident, and you're going to be more aware of your purpose and power, of the purpose and power within you. And all it takes is 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes. And you don't have to write something new every day. Take what you wrote with you and rehearse it. 5 minutes a day to increase your self-worth, to understand your value, to know who you are, and to know what you want. That's it. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. So remember to pray about all situations and circumstances, always. It's so important. Remember to wait on the Lord, wait on God. And when He gives you the answer, don't be afraid to act upon His answer. Know that God has your best interest at heart. He has our best interests at heart. So know that. Know that. So in the description box, I've recommended some great books on self-worth. I wrote some quotes to excel you toward increasing your self-worth. So I urge you to share the quotes, please. And a link to my previous video on willpower is also linked below. So thank you all so much for joining me. It is my prayer, my belief that this video has helped you and that it will help others. So thank you yet again for joining me. Remember to subscribe, hit the like button. I'm new to YouTube. Just remember to subscribe, hit the like button, leave valuable feedback for me. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your suggestions, and I just love to know you. So once again, thank you so much for joining me. Have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful day. Bye.